Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting. The council met in closed session this evening with the City Attorney's Office to discuss two items of anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2. The council was given a report and provided guidance to staff, but there is no reportable action. And the council adjourned their closed session at 5:52.
Thank you, Michelle. We'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to do the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The record will reflect that Vice Mayor Bernasconi is excused from tonight's meeting. We'll start a roll call with Councilmember Elbert. Here. Councilmember Mendoza. Here. Councilmember Rakucci. Here. And Mayor Haldeshell.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Kevin Hernandez to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Thank you. I'll ask the city clerk to announce the meeting procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening and welcome to the City of Roseville regular City Council meeting, Housing Authority and Housing Successor meeting. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table to your right or online on our city's website. All comments from the public should be directed to the City Council and not to any staff member or member of the public. All speakers must speak from the podium as this meeting is being recorded. For comments on non-agendized items, members of the public may address the City Council regarding any item that is not listed on tonight's agenda within the subject matter jurisdiction of our City Council. Public comments on non-agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The collective initial period for public comments is limited to 25 minutes. Any speaker that did not have the opportunity to speak during this first segment due to time limitations will be able to speak at the end of the council meeting just prior to council comments. The Brown Act does prohibit our City Council from engaging and taking action, debating, or discussing items that are not listed on tonight's agenda. For comments on agendized items, speakers will have 5 minutes to provide input that should be relevant to the items that are listed on the agenda. Time will be monitored, and once the red light begins to blink at the podium, we request that the speaker please conclude their comments. Lastly, if addressing the City Council tonight, please consider stating your name for the record. Thank you for your civic participation tonight, and welcome to the City of Roseville.
Thank you very much, Carmen. All right, we'll start with public comments on non-agenda items. Good evening, Nick.
Hello, my name is Nick Bryant. How are you doing today?
Back up.
How are you doing today?
They're perfect, Nick. That's so perfect right there.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing fantastic. Thank you.
So we need to look at the city of Roseville, looking at maybe for our commuters at Southside Park. It's really bad over there with the sidewalk that needs to be leveled up for our commuters because it is a tight turn for them. And I feel like the city needs to go out there and look at the sidewalk because, you know, the commuters have a hard time getting out. It's a tight turn right outside of the driveway right there. It's just, it makes it harder for them, and I feel like the city needs to go out there, check it out, and because it needs to be leveled up, it needs to be leveled up because those commuter buses are really big. So I feel like that they need to go out there, the city needs to go out there and look at it. So anyways, thank you.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Nick. Anyone else have a public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar, and I'll request the city clerk announce the procedures for approving the consent calendar.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be approved by one motion of the City Council. There will be no discussion on consent calendar items unless a member of the City Council, the staff, or a member of the public wishes to pull an item for a specific discussion. At this time, neither council or staff has made such a request. Is there any member of the public that would like to request an item be pulled from consent calendar tonight? Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, the City Council will consider consent calendar items 6.1 through 6.21. At this time, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start our roll call for adoption of our consent calendar items with Councilmember Elbert.
Yes.
Councilor Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haldeshell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we'll move on to the resolution portion of our agenda this evening, and item 7.1, Weber Park renovation project, master plan approval, adoption of the initial study, mitigated negative deck mitigated negative declaration and approval of mitigation and monitoring and reporting. And with us tonight, we have Jill Geller and Tara G.
Good evening, Mayor Howard Shelton, members of the council. I am Jill Geller, your Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Director. It's our pleasure to be here tonight. I have with me Tara G., our Park Planning and Development Manager, and Tara will provide you some information about the Weber Park renovation project.
Thanks, Jill. Again, it's a pleasure to be here to talk about the master plan for Weber Park. First, Weber Park is a 1.9-acre park site. It exists and is located off of Circuit Drive and Main Street in the downtown area, or Old Town area. Thanks to our partners, we were able to conduct an extensive public outreach program, which included 121 surveys from the neighborhood's early efforts, 140 surveys from the Parks, Recreation, and Library efforts, seven of which came in Spanish and 133 in English. With our partnership with the Health Education Council, we received 69 surveys through them. 11 were in Spanish and 58 were in English. We also received comments from over 90 attendees in various public meetings that we held throughout a year's period, and collected about 92 comments from children, which included Caseburg and Woodbridge adventure clubs, as well as a visit to the Boys and Girls Club. The top-rated 6 park amenities after all of that surveying included a loop walking path, soccer or open grass field, add more amenities or features to the playground, add some fitness stations, update the basketball court, and lower the park hill off of Main Street. In the graphic that you see, I know you can't read it, but the colors indicate in the blue results from the city survey. And by the way, anything below the line is a dislike. Everything above the line that people liked. In the orange were results or feedback from the Neighborhood Association effort, and then in green is the Health Education Council's effort. The dark blue indicates the overall totals for each of the park amenities that I mentioned. In December of 2022, a public meeting presented 2 options, with the main difference being either a full court or half court for basketball. And when I say options, 2 options to a proposed master plan. Prior to sharing these versions, staff met with the police department to obtain their thoughts about creating a safe environment, best practices that embrace crime prevention through environmental design were discussed. Examples of these best practices includes benches with middle arms so nobody can lay down on them, picnic tables with one square so that it's a one person seating area, or limbing up trees so people can see in, and keeping ground cover low so that there's clear views and surveillance aspects at all angles of the park. 20 people attended that meeting and unanimously voted for the version that included the full court for basketball. So this is the formal version of the proposed master plan that I mentioned and we shared with those who were in the meeting. Based on the vote for the full basketball court, we went to our last step of public outreach, which was a write-in period. So this shows those amenities that I mentioned before: looped path that goes along and throughout the park, 3 fitness pods, an open central grass area. It shows the full court for basketball. So it's been moved a little bit in order to expand the existing play area. We also added vehicle access or ADA access off of Main Street, and that's, if you're familiar with that park, there's an existing roadway that goes up the hill, but when we lower the entire topography, which will be at sidewalk height when we're done, the pathway, this allows an opportunity to create an ADA pathway and an easy path in. Right north of the basketball court, there's some picnic tables proposed, and it's also a parking area for police to have a presence within the center of the park. So the police can go do police reports while they're in their vehicles, which is typical now. They don't have a cubicle or a desk. They do a lot of their reports within their vehicle. That is their mobile office. And so this allows the opportunity to have a place to do that if they're in this downtown area while still having a presence in the park. We wanted to note that the area along Circuit Drive, the immediate area along Circuit Drive, remains mostly the same. We had expanded or replaced the play area earlier. We had provided ADA access and new swings, and so all of that will remain intact so that our original or more recent investment stays as part of the park master plan. For the write-in period, it was open for a month in consideration of the 2022 holiday season. The write-in period was then extended an extra week in January due to the heavy storms. If you recall, we had lots of storms and winds, and we felt that the focus of both the city and our residents was not on writing in about a playground or a new park, but the damages for the storm. So we extended that. In all, we had, where we typically have a 2-week write-in period, we had a 5-week write-in period to ensure that those who wanted to make comment had the opportunity to do so. So based on that, we had overall support for that. We didn't get a lot, as you can see, a lot. I think most of our comments came in earlier on, and with the support of the Neighborhood Association, we moved forward to going to the Parks and Recreation Commission in the February meeting, and they were supportive of the proposed master plan that you saw in the earlier slide. We then launched into the environmental clearance process, and an initial study mitigated negative declaration was developed, which sought public comment in September of 2023. That comment period ended in October, and during that period, the city received one comment letter from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, all those letters there, which provided a list of regulations and permitting requirements that the project was subject to. The project will comply with all federal, state, and local regulations, and the comment letter did not result in any necessary changes to the CEQA document. So the initial study mitigated negative declaration provides mitigation for nesting bird surveys and tree removals, and though unlikely, mitigation if unanticipated discovery of cultural resources and tribal cultural resources are found while we're removing the dirt. And just as a side note and a little bit of a statistic, by lowering the entire Main Street side of the park, we remove 11,700 cubic yards of dirt. And I've been asking for a year, if anybody needs dirt, please let me know. Due to the environmental clearance process, construction documents were developed concurrent to ensure that all aspects of the project were considered. The plans have since been completed to 99% and have been submitted for citywide review and permitting, and it is based on this master plan. There's still time to change should the council deem some changes necessary. And as we continue through the final steps towards approval, we expect to return to council to approve the final construction plans for bidding, and assuming we receive competitive bids, hope to break ground in the spring of 2024. As a part of ongoing communications, we have placed several banners at Weber Park indicating the pending renovations and rough timing. The QR code links directly to our webpage, which allows us to provide updates as they occur. These banners went up yesterday morning. So tonight, we are seeking approval to the master plan for Weber Park renovations and adoption of the initial study mitigated negative declaration. This concludes my presentation, and we stand ready to answer any questions you may have.
Councilwoman Rakucci, any questions?
One, sounds exciting. I'm
can't wait for you to start. Your signage that you're putting out there that talks about the spring of 2024, can you see that by the road?
Off of Main Street, we've put it as visible as we can on the fence, we're as conspicuous as the height allows us to do. And we
Okay.
also have the banners facing Circuit Drive as well, and another banner on the same, on the fence off of Main facing inside the park. So if you're going along Main Street, you have the opportunity to see it as well as Circuit. And if you're using the park, there's another banner. So we have 3 in all throughout the park.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that people, sometimes they know the park is coming, the park is coming. They just don't know when this park is coming. And so
Right.
now we really have spring of 2024 it's coming. It really is.
It really
We're doing
is.
the master plan here. So just something that said, literally, it's coming, spring of 2024. And all the other QR and everything else is good. But I think people who, I drive there frequently, they're just going to be very happy just to know that something's coming. So I'm very happy.
Member Mendonça, any questions?
Great presentation, Tara. No questions. Thank you.
Councilman Alvin, any questions?
No questions. I'll have comments after.
I didn't see it on the layout. Where'd the bathroom go?
The bathroom? Oh, I didn't
Off of
even
Circuit.
mention that.
You know, there's the restrooms off to the left.
Yeah.
Is that-
The master plan proposes to remove it completely. And the reason why we are removing or proposing to remove it is because, one, it's very old and outdated.
Yeah.
2, it's an attractive nuisance. And it was actually a very deep conversation we had when we met with the police department. And we all felt that in the end, it was something that was better removed.
Okay.
To be consistent with our other neighborhood parks, we don't have restrooms in the smaller parks. And so we felt that was also a good justification to remove it.
Great. All right, well, I'll open it up for public comment. And I will close public comment, bring back to council for any additional questions or comments. Councilman Albert?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, this has been a couple decades that I've known about the challenges with the park. And the main thing is the height, and we have a lot of times some problematic visitors that stay up there, and then the community doesn't want to use it. And it's so nice after, it seems like it just takes so long to get things done. And I know this was a really big hurdle, and I'm really proud of our council to be able to put the money, we had some extra funding and stuff, be able to put this towards it and really solve this problem for those neighbors, because I know that they've just been so upset and frustrated with it. And so I'm just really excited that we're finally getting this going. So thank you so much. And thanks for having the community involved in it. I know that was a really big deal. They all feel like it's their project. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mendonça, anything else?
No more comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Rakucci?
Well, I'm really glad to see the height reduced, because that's what all of our other parks are like that. And if you can drive around it, go around it, it's really hard to do something wrong with a lot of eyes looking at you.
Yeah, that's well stated, Councilwoman. And I love the outreach. I remember we went with tours with Roseville Heights and Los Cerritos of that. I appreciate, this is a great example of what we do at the city. We do outreach, we take input. This park was originally built in, I don't know, it's an 85, now it might be an almost 90-year-old park. The Rose Garden commemorates World War I veterans. It's one of these iconic tributes to community service in the city of Roseville. So thanks for working with the community. I think we're stronger because of that outreach. And so I'll ask the city clerk to read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 7.1, the City Council will consider approving the master plan for the Weber Park renovation and adopting Resolution Number 23-467, approving the initial study mitigated negative declaration and approving the mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program for the Weber Park renovation project, and authorizing the city manager to execute it on behalf of the City of Roseville. At this time, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start our roll call with Councilmember Albert.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haudashelt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to ordinances, and ordinance 8.1, California. Nice job, both of you, right? And your entire team, right? California Department of Water Resources Generating Units Agreement Amendments. And with us tonight is our Electric Utilities Director, Daniel Beans, Electric Utility Director, William Forsythe, and that guy.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and
Sean-
Councilors.
Sean.
Sean Matcham, our Chief Operating Officer for Roseville Electric. So, yeah, this has been quite a project, and I wanted, Sean up here and Bill, they've been instrumental in getting this done, but many other electric staff, but I also want to shout out to the clerk's office and the attorney's office. There's been a lot of people, the city team has been working on this project. And anyway, thank you, Sean and Bill, for all that you've done on this. And we're going to let Bill have the honors of giving the presentation, so.
Thank you. Mayor Haudashelt, council members, if we go to the next slide. So we're here tonight for your consideration, seeking action on 3 items. Approval to apply to the California Energy Commission for a distributed energy backup asset grant. Approval of amending the 3 contracts we currently have with the state of California, the site use and installation agreement, energy services agreement, and the operations and maintenance agreement. And finally, we're seeking approval of a fiscal year 2024 budget adjustment for $8 million to make capacity upgrades. And the caveat to that is we're only going to spend that money if we get approved to the Energy Commission's DEBA program. And in totality, these actions, if you approve these actions, this will lead to these generators being permanent parts of Roseville's portfolio. So just to give you a little bit of background, the current contracts we have with DWR, some of you may recall that in the summer of 2021, the governor issued an executive order, and we negotiated with the state, and we were able to site these temporary generators in August and September of 2021. The current agreements that we executed with the state, they expire in a little over 3.5 weeks. Under these agreements, we receive $4 million a year in fees, and we get to pass through some of our labor and direct material costs. And finally, those agreements, we have a purchase option at the end of term in 3.5 weeks where we could purchase these units for $21 million from the state of California. In the time these units have been sited and under the current agreements, these units are only used in grid emergencies, and the city of Roseville doesn't get any direct benefit from the energy or capacity that these units provide. So the state in 2022, in new legislation, set up this distributed energy backup assets program. It's a new incentive program, and it's meant to support state power emergencies, to add capacity. One mechanism of the DEBA program is to fund existing facilities to improve the efficiency, to improve the output of the units. One note, these units, the gas pressure we have at the Roseville Energy Park has not enabled these state units to achieve their the manufacturer's specification for output. So there's an interest from the state, there's an interest from us to add some equipment to be able to achieve that full output. So this program is administered by the Energy Commission, and it's expected that the very first application process occurs later this month. So DWR and Roseville, we both see a benefit in transitioning these units from the current arrangement with the Department of Water Resources to more of a longer-term obligation to this state DEBA program. So to give you an overview of the amendments that we've been negotiating with the state, so we kicked this off about 8 months ago in the spring. These contract amendments will require Roseville to invest to increase the unit's capacity, restore the manufacturer's capability, ensure that the units run during grid emergencies, and in exchange for that, Roseville is going to forego annual lease fee revenue, but not have to pay at the end of the term to buy these units. So in negotiating this arrangement, there's 2 options that are built into the contracts. So under option 1, this is the option that we prefer, the state prefers. The term of the agreement would go out to December 31st, 2027. Roseville receives no fee revenue, and Roseville seeks a CEC grant, and on approval of that CEC grant, we make investments. We execute $8 million in equipment contracts. We seek to get up to $1.5 million of a DEBA grant. And just to note, Roseville will then get title when we achieve acceptance into the DEBA program and we've executed these equipment contracts. Title to these units will transfer to Roseville. So the benefits to the state is they don't have to make any more lease payments, and the units will still operate in extreme grid events to benefit everyone in the state. For Roseville, we get title and we get used to the units in a very expedited fashion. In other words, we anticipate significantly before December 31st, 2027, we would have title. So option 2, if we can't meet the option 1 conditions, then the term is going to go out to December 31st, 2027. Again, we'll get no lease revenue. Roseville will end up investing a net $0.2 million on some minor upgrades to the site, and we'll get title to the units under a very fixed time frame. We'll get the first unit at the end of December 2026 and the second unit at the end of 2027. So the budget adjustment that we're seeking your action on, we would make an adjustment to the FY 2024 budget of $8 million to enable us to pursue option 1. So the funds would be used to execute contracts only if the Energy Commission approves our DEBA application. So we would upgrade the water system. This is the water system that the REP has. We would hook these units and have a more reliable supply of water for the operation of the unit. So under both option 1 and option 2, we're going to make those investments. If we go down the path of option 2, the state is going to reimburse us $800,000 for those investments. We're going to install inlet coolers to cool the air. This is during very hot days, the units lose their ability to output. So these coolers will help increase the ability to meet the designed output. And we'll install gas compressors, which will overcome the deficiency we have in the service we get on that distribution line. So under option 1, if we are approved by DEBA, we make these investments, we can recover up to about $1.5 million of the $8 million investments we're going to make. So, conclusion, we've had this great partnership with the state these last little over 2 years. DWR has a new deputy director over this program, a new lead counsel, and the whole team at DWR has been excellent to work with. To echo what our director said, the support we've had from the city attorney's office, from the staff at Roseville Electric, this has been a very collaborative negotiation. Over these last 2 years, Roseville has supported the statewide grid. We've run these units during all the critical grid events that have occurred. This deal will put Roseville on the path to owning these units outright. In the long term, these units will be important for Roseville and for statewide reliability for a number of years. And both options ensure that Roseville can use these units for our own purpose and our own community needs once we receive title. And upon approval of these items, staff will initiate implementing the actions so that we can satisfy the option 1 criteria.
John, did you have anything to add to this?
Nothing, I think, too significant. I just maybe a little with regard to our working relationship with DWR. When we signed the current agreement a little over 2 years ago, there was a different team at DWR, many different people here at Roseville that negotiated that, and that was good work. It put us on this path to be able to bring this forward, to recommend this project, this agenda item for your consideration. We've also had a lot of new people at the electric department that have been involved in this, and so we've been tremendously fortunate to have the right people at the table on these negotiations, and grateful for the team that we work with at DWR. So I think that can't be understated. Very important for us as an electric utility to have this relationship going forward with DWR, also to be in a program with the California Energy Commission, one of the more meaningful regulatory agencies here for our industry. So good work over the last couple of years, and this really sets the stage for us to, I think, be successful going forward. And then we see tremendous value for what these units can mean for us as we serve this community, as we keep the lights on and support the strong reliability we've had for many years. So we're proud to recommend this to council for approval.
Before we open any questions, Dan, anything, exclamation points or anything you want to put on this?
Just to add that the timing of this is really excellent for us. We have an older project that's actually coming due to be repowered, and so this gives us better options. And one of the things that's kind of been said, but not said super explicitly, but ownership of these means there's value in the market with these items for our community. And so this is going to be very huge for us to be able to control that and treat it like our own assets and be able to optimize for the benefit of the community. So it'll be great.
Thank you. Councilman Alver, do you have any questions?
I do have some. How many times have we run these in the past? How many days since we've had them?
The entire month of September 2022.
Yeah, during September of 2022, I think we ran them approximately 3 to 4 days at about 4 to 6 hours each day.
That's it.
More recently, we actually dispatched the units last month. There was a grid event in Southern California, and per the operating criteria we have with the state, we turned them on for about an hour.
Okay. Do we expect that to change a whole lot? Do we think that's going to go up quite a bit or be roughly the same? Any reason to expect that to be different in the future, as long as because if we do this, we're still tied into supplying that power. So I'm just trying to get an idea how often they're going to want those turned on for them.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So we don't have any certainty on what it's going to look like, but in terms of the near-term outlook, we see the supply balance in California looking very similar to what it has over the last couple years, simply. And so I think what we saw in last year and this summer is probably indicative to what we would expect going forward over the foreseeable future. The only real caveat and the moving part there is what happens with hydro production in California. So that's a big mover. This year, obviously, hydro was a lot better on our system, so they didn't run as much as they did the year before when it was a drier year. So one of the things I'll say about that, even though there is an obligation for us to remain tied to DEBA and offer these units and run them during defined grid emergencies, we do that today with all our assets anyway. And so the Roseville Energy Park, Roseville Power Plant number 2, our other assets through joint action. If there's a grid emergency, we're all in anyway for our balancing authority directly and then to support the ISO. So we look at that as really that's business as usual. It's not really it's a binding constraint for us to have that as an offer under this agreement.
And when we run our generators for the better purpose of the outside grid, we get paid for that, right? That's not anything that we're losing out on other than generating our own electricity with those generators.
That's right. We get value when we make the capacity or energy available. We get compensated through a couple different mechanisms. But absolutely correct. We get paid for making that available.
And then when we got the generators in, I know the state rushed getting them in really fast. I don't know if corners were cut, but once it comes to us, do we have to go back and fix any corners?
So I would, and Bill can weigh in here also, I don't think there are any corners that were cut that we need to fix things. The units have run as designed. We test them every month to make sure they're available. What's included in some of this here, but not included in the 8 million, but the units were installed by the state with the intent of being there for 26 months approximately. And so there were limited term or short-term site improvements made that now that if they're going to come and be part of our portfolio now under both options, we will look at what investments we may need to make to grid or to site security, other infrastructure improvements, control systems, having extra spare parts. One of the more significant things we're going to look at is making sure we have a spare transformer going forward. So there will be things that we will make site improvements to make these temporary items permanent. So that will be on the horizon over the next 5 to 7 years. And the good thing about that is we'll get to define when we want to incur those costs and start that work. The other part of it is the value that we would expect to realize from having these units in our portfolio will help offset some of those costs and investments as well.
All right, and then the last piece, we were talking about getting title, and if we get title, could you just talk about, I mean, when would we get title? Is it a probability that we'll get title? And then I have just one follow-up question with that, so.
So title under option 1 is, or under option 2, just to clarify, is under a prescribed schedule. We know precisely if we're under that option, we're going to take title. There's a little more uncertainty under option 1, but based on what we know in our initial discussions with DWR and the CEC, we would expect to take title before the end of next calendar year.
Okay. And then you guys are, my final thing, you're encouraging us, your preference is option 1, which costs us $8 million versus option 2, which costs us $200,000. The disconnect, I think you kind of touched on it, but we actually gain by owning it because we'll make up that $8 million. Could you please explain that? Because I don't think that was made real clear in the presentation, so.
Sure, and that's a great way to look at it. We're willing to pay a premium, if you will, to accelerate or expedite our ownership of the assets. So under option 2, there's defined timeframes, a few years out, 3-4 years out. For us making these investments up to $8 million, we'll get title again sometime next year. And then that allows us to use those assets to market the value of the capacity of the energy in the various markets and get revenue through that source. So we feel pretty comfortable with making those investments up front, and based on where the market is and we see the value of these sort of assets, that makes sense financially for us, and we'd recover those costs as a part of that accelerated ownership. We get to use them to sell excess capacity. We get to use them to serve our own community needs. We see tremendous value in that, far exceeding the $8 million that we would go for these.
Councilwoman Rakucci, any questions?
This is the best thing I've heard in a long time. It was great when we got them at our facility so we could help California and make sure that we have stability in our electric utilities for everyone. But this one here was one of your conclusions, both options ensure Roseville could use units for our own purpose and meet community needs and still be there for California. We always make sure that we can do things that we're always in a safe position and help our community and not make sure the lights come on and people either don't freeze or don't burn up. So, this is, I'm just couldn't be more pleased.
Councilmember Mendoza.
And this is one of those times we're going last. I have nothing left to ask.
No, I was going to say the same thing.
Thank you
so.
to my colleagues for the good questions, and thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, we'll open up for public comment, and we'll close public comment, and I don't think there are any additional questions or comments, so I'll ask the clerk to read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 8.1, the City Council will consider adopting Resolution Number 23-469, approving the first amended and restated site use and installation agreement, a First Amendment to Energy Services Agreement, and First Amendment to Operations and Maintenance Agreement by and between the City of Roseville and the California Department of Water Resources, and authorizing the city manager to execute them on behalf of the City of Roseville, and adopting Resolution Number 23-470, approving a grant application to the California Energy Commission for the Distributed Electricity Backup Asset Program, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute all related forms and agreements on behalf of the City of Roseville. And also adopting ordinance number 6758, authorizing certain amendments to the fiscal year 2023-24 budget, and declaring this ordinance to be immediately effective as an appropriation measure. With that, Mr. Mayor, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start our roll call with Councilmember Albert,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haudashelt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Win, 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 right?
Yeah.
3 wins, right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 8.2, Roseville Municipal Code Amendment, Sidewalk Vending Ordinance. Wayne, are you making the presentation on this?
I am, yes.
Here from our Economic Development Manager, Wayne Wiley.
And thank you for that introduction, Mayor Haddishell, members of the council, again, for the viewing audience. My name is Wayne Wiley, Economic Development Manager. And the item before you tonight is a request to amend the municipal code for the adoption of a sidewalk vending ordinance. And before I get into the presentation, I just want to note that the main purpose of this action tonight is really to bring the city's code into compliance with state legislation and to provide clarity on the city's authority regarding governing sidewalk vendors. So first, next slide, please. Just to provide a little context or background, back in September of 2018, the Safe Sidewalk Vending Act was signed into law by then Governor Jerry Brown with Senate Bill 946. And this specifically applied to persons selling food or merchandise on a public sidewalk or other public pedestrian path. Now, this legislation essentially allowed these vendors to operate within the public right-of-way as long as there were no objectionable public health or safety concerns. And really, the intent here was to support these types of small businesses is they've been viewed as a means to enhance economic mobility for underserved entrepreneurs. So to that end, the legislation really did two things. One, it prohibited jurisdictions from criminalizing sidewalk vending, and two, it restricted jurisdictions from regulating sidewalk vendors unless there was an established vending ordinance in place. So shown here are the proposed regulations allowed and allowable operating conditions. And first, just as a side note, I want to highlight that these restrictions do not apply to food trucks or open-air vendors located within or on private property. And that's because our zoning ordinance currently has established guidelines to govern these entities. Now, as you can see here, the proposed regulations require these operators to secure a business license, a seller's permit, and if they're selling food, a county health permit. And then as it relates to operating conditions, the ordinance does require the appropriate sanitary conditions be maintained, that there's no excessive visual or noise, and that these uses are placed in the appropriate location. And so just some examples of that would be they're not allowed to block vehicular or pedestrian traffic. They can't obstruct vehicles' lines of sight, and they're not to be located within 1,000 feet of temporary special events, farmers markets, swap meets, or other special events. And finally, if they are operating within our parks, they have to meet all the appropriate regulations. Next slide. So in conclusion, based on kind of where we are with state legislation, Staff finds that the proposed ordinance is consistent with state law while also establishing conditions that meet the needs of our business community and residents at large. And so with that, staff is recommending that the City Council introduce for the first reading an ordinance amending Title IX of the Roseville Municipal Code to include Chapter 9.37 pertaining to sidewalk vendors. And so that concludes my short presentation tonight, but staff would be happy to answer any questions.
No, thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, I have several questions. First of all, I've seen many of these in the downtown area over the last couple months, and I see they operate, well, before I get ahead of myself, I have an issue with them being out here when we also have the food trucks and we have downtown merchants, that are trying to also sell. Some of them have fixed menu items, to entice customers to come in. And I know that these operators, they operate at a price point to draw in people to obviously buy them because it's less expensive than to go to one of our vendors down here. And the food trucks can get pricey depending on what you order. So I guess my question is, what message is this sending when we have our food trucks down here and we have our businesses down here to allow these vendors? Is there an end game here for the city? Because aside from the business license and the county health permit, which we don't see any money on, because I have one for my business, the county sees all of that. The sales tax goes right to the state. They have to file their quarterlies like all the rest of the businesses. What else are we getting from this?
Yeah, so just to be clear, with this ordinance, it would require a 1,000-foot separation from those types of special events.
Okay.
So currently, this ordinance isn't in place, and so I think that's has led to some of the issues you just explained. But with the adoption of this ordinance, we would then be able to monitor those types of activities.
And that leads to my next question. Who's going to enforce that? Because I can tell you, when I've seen them down here, they're on the sidewalks because they can't be out in the street. Because just one case in point, outside of Gooseport, the way that they have the angled parking, specifically also in front of Goldfield and Monk's, Tracks is a little different because you've got a 90-degree angle with parking on both sides. If you push them out onto the street off the sidewalks, because it says you can't impede sidewalk or pedestrian access as one of your bullet points, then that blocks traffic on Vernon going westbound and the diagonal parking. If they're across the street in front of the Masonic Temple, and on that side, you have the same issue where the parking spaces aren't dead on, they're at an angle. So in order not to impede traffic and not to impede pedestrian access, we're basically pushing them out into the middle of the street, which obviously that can't take place either. So where are we expecting them to operate?
Yeah, the short answer is it would depend on who's going to enforce, whether it's PD or code enforcement, and both of those entities have been notified of this ordinance. I think in your scenario, if they don't follow the regulations that are prescribed within this ordinance, then they would not be able to operate legally.
So we have have a warning system like, hey, here's a list of what you should be doing. You may or may not be aware of it, or whatever. And then the next time it's a citation, and then the third time, is there something going to be built in? This is the first reading, so I just want to make sure that I get all this out there in case we need to have additional things for future readings. What is the I don't want to say disciplinary because that's the wrong word. What is the process of getting them into compliance?
Yeah, we have Travis Cochran from our attorney's office who can probably speak to that in a little more detail.
Before, Wayne, you go to Travis. So Councilmember Mendoza, I see this as exactly doing what you, as a business person, would want the city to do. You get your business license, right? You operate under the rules of the city that the city lays down, right? You don't want folks who are not complying with that impeding upon your business, and that's what I see.
Right,
what I see this doing.
I guess I have 2 points before I wrap up. One is how do we make sure we don't have these vendors in conflict? So like we have somebody selling Mexican food, for instance, and we have a Mexican restaurant, a really darn good one down here on Vernon, or we have somebody selling the same type of food at a discounted price. And I'm sure the Downtown Merchants Association, I don't know if they've weighed in on this, but my biggest concern as a business owner is looking out for the businesses, businesses, right?
Sure.
So I want to make sure that we don't have duplicate. I'm all for, I'm a capitalist at heart. I'm all for these people making money as long as they do it the right way. But I don't want it to happen at the price and the cost of our existing businesses down here.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that this is due to state legislation, so our hands are somewhat tied in how we can enforce these, and so.
Can we say what types of food and what type of vendors are down here?
No, we cannot.
That's mandated by the state?
Correct.
So whether or not we approve or disapprove this ordinance, we're bound by the state. It's one of those issues where we're coming into compliance because we're not currently in compliance.
So Councilman Alford, thank you for your patience. I thought that there was 1,000 foot. So if I'm selling Mexican food,
That's
I
all.
can't be within 1,000 feet of another permitted operation that meets all these requirements.
No, so that refers to any special event, so downtown Tuesday nights.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, this does not prohibit these sidewalk vendors from operating, let's say, in our downtown generally, if they're compliant with the regulations that are outlined in the ordinance. So in your scenario, potentially that could happen. There again, just to drive home the point, the state purposefully has allowed certain conditions for these sidewalk vendors to operate. And so regardless of the vote, and I don't want to speak out of turn, so the attorney might want to also chime in here, but regardless of the vote tonight on the ordinance, we'll still be beholden to the state legislation.
Wayne,
Can I
appreciate it.
just say something, because I think there's a little confusion. I think that what's maybe being missed is this allows us to regulate it. Without this ordinance, we'd have no ability to regulate it.
So we could regulate who and what?
Based on this, we can do it within the special events, and the 1,000 feet, and what the mayor was referencing was because we have a certified farmer's market, which is something that's allowed, which gives us the ability to manage that. But without this ordinance in place, the state law that comes in, there's no ability to regulate it, and so that's part of the issue. And unfortunately, what you're expressing is covered under the state law, and some of that is allowed expressively.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Councilman Alford, thanks for your patience.
No problem. The no amplified music noise in connection with the promotion of activities, is that a new item? Seen that one before.
No, it was outlined in the staff report, and it's
On the
It's part of
proposed
the ordinance.
regulations, was that already there, or is that a new thing that was added to this?
It was noted in the ordinance that was submitted with the CC. This whole ordinance is new. Maybe I'm
Right,
on.
it's not in the state law.
This is all new.
It's all new.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, right. Okay.
And I'm going to ask a rhetorical question, I guess. How many farmers markets, certified farmers markets and swap meets do we have in the city?
So I don't believe we have any certified farmers markets.
Is it-
Now, we have Denios, who's a swap meet, and they're not certified. And then you have other farmers markets at Whole Foods. I think Kaiser had one for a number of years.
All right. And I know, like Denio specifically, it's frustrating just knowing that's a really popular business that draws people from out of our city, every weekend. And there's a lot of vendors that just sit on its borders outside, taking advantage of the paid marketing to bring those people in. And so I like this as far as protecting an asset, a business that draws people to our community. There's one of my concerns when we were first talking about this, I just wonder if you could address it. So across Foothills, there's a large parking lot where there's a big car wash going in by Starbucks and things over there. That's a great place to possibly have a vendor-type event. If they wanted to do something like that, I would they're within that 1,000-foot range, so how would they be able to have a vendor thing? What would be the process they'd have to go through? Because I would hate to take that property owner and say, sorry, you're within 1,000 feet, you can never hold an event there.
Yeah. Great question. So on private property, the sidewalk vendor or open-air vendor would need to secure the approval of the property owner. In addition, the zoning ordinance has prescribed standards on approving those types of uses. So there's a separate process that's handled through the planning division.
Okay. That was it. That's my-
I'm sorry, I had one follow-up on, the mayor distracted me and I was going somewhere. Not that way, but does this include pop-ups?
So pop-up events?
Because what Councilmember Alvord mentioned, I had it written down, and I was formulating it in my brain, and then I lost it, but now I got it again. So somebody who wanted to do a pop-up, like I've seen a couple of them. There's one over here in Roseville Square. There's one that sits out off of across the street from the Galleria where the Macy's furniture store is. They just have like an easy up, and they're selling their food. It's not necessarily like they're pushing a cart or things that you see downtown here on Vernon. But would this ordinance cover that too, because it's on private property?
That would be a similar situation
Right.
that Councilmember Alvord just mentioned. And so, yeah, they would have to secure the property owner's approval to locate there and go through the appropriate.
But all the rest of the things, like the loud music and all the other things, would those apply to them? Or would it just be the approval of the property owner or the site? And then as long as they got a health permit, the rest of the stuff wouldn't apply to them because they're not technically street vendor, it's more of a pop-up kind of a thing?
Yeah, so they would have a different set of criteria, and that's noted in the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
But some of the concerns I think that you're alluding to would be addressed through those standards that are outlined in our zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay, just
If I
wanted to
may, just to
clarify.
add on, a lot of the operational conditions and those restrictions you mentioned, like the signage, the noise, those were actually taken from the open air vendor ordinance. So the ordinances are very similar, but the way SB 947 or 946 works is we have to treat sidewalk vendors separate and apart from open air vendors. So to the extent that you have something on private property, a lot of these same operational conditions already apply to those vendors. They just now separately apply to sidewalk vendors. The difference between being sidewalk vendors operate in the public right of way, open air vendors often operate on private property. with
Understood,
the-
so there's a line there.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Sorry, Mayor.
No, that's great. No, this is good discussion. So the operation of sidewalk vendors, no amplified music, noise or music allowed in connection with the promotion of activities. So we had on Vernon Street for a while, some folks that were standing on this side of Vernon Street yelling across the street. Would that be prevented under this proposed regulation? They're on the sidewalk,
Were
they're
they-
obstructing a business, right?
Selling merchandise or?
I believe they were selling a philosophy. So, I mean, so,
For the soul.
it says here, no amplified music in connection with the promotion of activities. So that would strengthen our ability to,
Well, this is as it relates to sidewalk vendors. And so sidewalk
well,
vendors.
that's what I'm trying to get at. Travis, help me, right? I mean,
not
they're selling something.
It's going
right?
to depend on the context of the speech, and to the degree they're selling something that is protected First Amendment speech, then likely this ordinance or that specific provision would not apply to it.
Okay.
To the extent their speech is about selling a good.
So if they're
or
selling
something like
salvation,
that.
they're not in this.
Right.
More than likely,
Well, and just to
right kind of
to
vendor.
clarify, because the legislature says any person who sells food or merchandise.
Right.
So it's pretty specific.
Okay, all right, now, I was just, okay. All right, we will open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Come on up to the podium, sir.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Mayor Bruce. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Mr. Thomas. For years, I have been going to places like Denial's Auction, and for me, it's always been a very positive experience. I can tell you, just how much it has mattered to me as a kid and even now as an adult to come back home to a place like Roseville. Because even though we're talking about sidewalk vending ordinance, I think it's important to be able to mention why people have vending ordinances as a thing. I think a lot of it could have to do with them wanting to sell their items to the community. I honestly see no problem with that, but then again, it really just depends on the person that you ask. But when Council Member Scott brought up the point of Denials Auction being a popular asset. It has been popular for many years, and to tell you the truth, I just think it's a good thing to be able to go to places like that, because for one, it has a place like a fruit stand. It has places where you can shop for clothes if that's something that you choose to do, and things like that. But as far as the sidewalk vending ordinance goes, I think it really just depends on the person, what it is they believe in, because everybody's beliefs is going to be a little bit different. But I'm on the side of keeping denials around, because I think it's a good idea to for people around the community, and especially the Roseville community, to go to places like that. So thank you very much for your time, Mayor Bruce, and thank you to the board.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Hello, thank you, Mayor Bruce and council members.
Lean in a little more.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
It's great to be here this evening. I want to start off by thanking Wayne for taking the time and the effort to get into this issue and do your presentation tonight. We really appreciate it. When the state passed this sidewalk vending law, it was clear to market owners and operators that action needed to be taken to protect the swap meets as well as the hundreds of vendor families who operate within them. Unfortunately, in Southern California, where many of the flea markets and swap meets reside, this plea for help fell on deaf ears. As a leader in the California Swap Meet Association, we have seen firsthand the effects the state sidewalk vending law has had on markets, some of which unfortunately have decided to close their doors. As a third-generation owner of a business that has been in this community for more than 75 years, it truly has been and remains an honor to be a place for some small businesses to operate. We are also very proud to provide just under 100 jobs in the community. People often stop me and share their experience of Denios being their first job, and it humbles me every time. It's great to be even a small part of their lives in that way. We are thankful to the city and the council, specifically Wayne, Dom, and Vice Mayor Krista. We also want to recognize and thank the Roseville Police Department for their consistency on enforcement, and we are just truly grateful for being in such a wonderful place. Thank you all.
For your comments. Anyone else? Any other public comment? All right, if there's no other public comment, I'll close public comment, see if the council has any additional questions or comments regarding the presentation.
No, it's fine.
Okay, I'll ask the clerk to read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 8.2, the City Council will consider introducing for a first reading ordinance of the Council of the City of Roseville adding Chapter 9.37 to Title 9 of the Roseville Municipal Code regarding sidewalk vending. This time, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start our roll call with Councilmember Alvord.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haldeshelt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, thank you. We will now take the second opportunity to open for public comment on non-agenda items. Seeing no one, I'll ask the city manager if he has any reports.
No further reports, Mayor. Thank you.
And the city attorney.
Nothing from me, thank you.
All right, I'll ask the council members. We'll start with the letter A. Councilman Alvord.
All right. It has been a busy time, and there is a lot of holiday festivities the city has been providing for the community, and there's more to come. We've got a parade coming up, and Santa's making his rounds through many parts of our city. I hope you'll check out the city website, roseville.ca.us/events, to catch up with some of that, but it's a lot of fun. The tree lighting that we attended was by far the most packed I have seen, and so many people talked about how much fun they had. Most of them at the event, some just had to have fun while they were waiting in their cars trying to get to the event because they didn't plan early enough, but it was really packed, and it was a lot of fun, and it's not too often we get snow in Roseville, but it snowed several times downtown here, and that was kind of cool. I live on the west side of town, and we had 2 new wells that we just celebrated this week. And they're ASR wells, Aquifer Storage and Recovery. And it's just a neat thing. Our city is so forward-thinking, and it's very unusual. Roseville stands out statewide on some of their thinking. And basically below us, we have a unique geographic aquifer that we can actually treat water, drinkable water, inject it down below us, and we have enough room for 2 Folsom Lakes below us, and then store it there. So during the wintertime, we have lots of water that just ends up going out to the Gulf. We can actually get some of that, treat it, save it, and then during the hottest times of the year, we can pull it up and mix it with surface water to help extend our own drinking. It just gives us more resiliency and more opportunity down the road. And we have other things that are coming as well to even further that, because water is definitely a very important commodity. And it's just, I'm very proud to be in this city, and our staff are fantastic. And this is something that's taken a couple decades to do, and that was kind of neat, just hearing that story. And then I think it was yesterday, Pauline and I went and got a refresher tour in Granite Bay area, where our water treatment plant, where we get water coming from Folsom Lake, and it goes through a treatment process, and that was just kind of neat again, and just more pride knowing that our city's doing things right. We own that utility. That's something that we have on behalf of our residents, and they pay nice low water rates because of it. And I think that's all I got to share right now, but lots of stuff going on. I know the council's been very busy.
Councilwoman Rakucci.
Just kind of adding on to that, and plus a little bit more. I've been to our Northern California Power Agency meetings, and we've been spending literally 8 hours last week doing legislative and regulatory materials for 5 and then 3 other meetings. But what all that comes down to is, how does the state and the federal government affect Placer County and Roseville, and how do we work with them and making sure that our needs are met. Also, yesterday I went to Aquifer Storage and Recovery, their dedication, and so did Mayor Haldeshelt, and it's just a sight to see, because it's so futuristic, so modern, and a concept that took many, many years, as Scott said, to start. I actually worked and was on city council when Derek Whitehead, who was environmental water director, kind of had an idea, but it took many, many years, and it evolved to get to where it is now. And so it's something for Roseville and all of California to really enjoy. I also went to the Placer County Water and Roseville committee meetings, and we did the water tour of Placer County's, Roseville's water system, and that's wasn't our first time there, but you just always see something else, and just see how close we are to Folsom Dam, and how the water runs in and what the process is. So that was good. And as far as all these things that have happened in Roseville, it's been real busy. The downtown Christmas tree lighting, it was like, I think Mayor said it well at the event. He said, it looks like all of Roseville's here. And honest to God, I thought you were right. You know, it's like, I never seen all these eyes and people. It was like crazy, crazy wonderful, actually. We will be having our downtown parade. It rained out, and so our new rain date is December 16th at 9 o'clock. So we still are planning to have one downtown. And also, something that's been new in Roseville for the last 3 years, it's wreaths across America, and this is at Roseville Cemetery, where they put wreaths on veterans' graves to commemorate how much they've meant to not only their families, but what they've done for our country. And everybody's welcome to attend that. And that, again, that's 12 noon. And I think that is it. It's just been a wonderful time. Just stay safe and enjoy the holidays.
Yep. Councilmember Mendoza.
So ditto to what my fellow council members have already brought up. I just have a few things. I had the opportunity to join my fellow council members on Saturday at the Tommy Apostolos shopping day. 5 a.m. came real early on a Saturday. It was great to see, it's always great to see the need fulfilled within our community that this organization provides. We ended up, my wife and I, we got to shop 3 times around, had 3 great kids. I miss the kids being that young of an age because I have teenagers who know everything. So it was nice to have younger kids who actually didn't know as much as I guess I don't, or my wife and I don't know. So that was great. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Fire Station 7 for an amazing pancake breakfast after the Tommy Apostolos shopping day. You guys killed it. Really, really, really good pancakes. Highly recommend if you missed it this year. Seek that out next year. And then lastly, I just want to give another shout out to our police department and commend them on the success so far, and there's many weeks left to go on the holiday season, on their Operation Grinch. I'm seeing great updates through social media and emails from the chief and updates about nefarious activity being thwarted here in our city and shoplifters being held accountable for their actions, which is great to see because we don't see that on a state or national level many times. So great job on that operation, and please keep that up. I know the residents in this city like to see that enforcement taking place, and I can certainly tell that you guys have put a lot of time and effort into it. It's certainly paying off, so thank you. And with that, Mayor, I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, thanks. I had an opportunity on Sunday to ride along with our PD on Operation Grinch, and it was very, very enlightening to see how they, how they operate, how they, together they work to make sure that, that our businesses feel safe and our those who visit our community feel safe. After Tommy and after the pancake breakfast, I went to deliver a certificate to Friends of the Roseville Public Library on their 50th anniversary, and then I went home. That was enough for one day. So today marks a year since I rotated into becoming Roseville's mayor, and it's been a pleasure to work with all of you and see things like Vice Mayor Bernasconi told me I would see, like after the Christmas tree lighting as I was leaving, there's a little girl was looking up, and I go, "Are you a 3rd grader?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "You go to Quail Glen?" "Yeah." And her dad said she was so excited to see you after she had, I had talked to the 3rd graders at Quail Glen. That just really kind of is what this city is about. The other thing the city is about is service. And so, Councilmember Mendoza, you and I served on the Planning Commission with Planning Commissioner Charles Krafka, and Vice Mayor Bernasconi and I got an email from Charles Krafka wanting to reach out to give us a big praise to the city engineering and planning departments for the Mercy Housing Affordable Project on Pleasant Grove that was awarded a grant and is moving forward. This grant will require we get construction permits within 6 months of the award. I think that's the time allowed, which is very tough to meet. But to make things tougher on us, we found out that a requirement of the grant was to split the lot. What makes this hard was we did not know this when we went through entitlements, so we did not have an approved tentative map. So we had to very quickly push one through the city with Greg Bitter, Darren, Shelby, Jack, Matt, and Mark. And they were awesome to get us our tentative map and approved in about a month's time, which is unheard of in any other agency in the region. And that's what Roseville's about, right?
That's right.
Service above self, right? Putting it forward. And it also demonstrates to me our commitment to affordable housing. And so I was appreciative of Mr. Krafka sharing that with us. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting till the math carry on. 20th? All right, we'll be adjourned till the 20th. Thank you, everybody. All right.